no matter how famous they are, no matter how much money you have, it's all the basics, the simple stuff. Like when I was coaching Mr. Beast for his diet, he's giving me his diet and he sends me pictures of the whole thing. And I'm like, he's giving me his diet and he sends me pictures of the whole thing. And I'm like, that is seriously what you eat? Because I'm thinking this guy has, like, I'm thinking he must have 10 private chefs at home, like doing everything. And it's like the most basic, boring diet. I'm like, you're going to stick to that? I'm like, no, like, why are you doing that? But no matter how much money, no matter how famous you are, people just want the quick and easy. Yeah. Just, I'm going to grab this out of the fridge, a boring, like 50-cent can of whatever. But in your mind, you're thinking they must have eaten lobster every meal. But it's just not the case. And for you, it's the same thing. It's just like, I just want something quick and easy, just like everybody else. And I don't want to waste time in the kitchen.
Look, no amount of money or amount of fame is going to change you from me. You know, we're all human. We all want to eat the same thing. We all have the same cravings. You know, and it's hilarious that you brought up Mr. Beast, because I thought about him like probably about 20 minutes ago. Like I just remember like, oh, I was going to say Mr. Beast is, you know, I saw he was, we were talking about the creativity and how, you know, you can be low on creativity when you're dieting, but I saw he was posting every day on his story, like, oh, the meals that he eats. And it was like chicken and like, I don't even know, asparagus or something. And I was like, dude, how are you? He's like 90% of my meals are just this. I'm like, there's no carbs in there. And I'm like, I don't know how you're living like this, especially, you know, being as creative as you are, you're definitely going to like stop making videos or not be as frequent as it or with it. So, you know, those thoughts go through my mind, but I'm like, you know, a lot of people get scared of carbs and they're like, oh, you know, you can't eat carbs, you know, that's going to hurt you. And I'm like, you know, I used to think the same thing when I was a little heavier, but the leaner I get, the more my body's like, yo, you fucking need it, bro. You need this energy. You need these carbs. And there's days where I'm taking in like 300 grams of carbs and I feel fucking great. And I'm still losing body fat. So you don't need to, you know, restrict yourself on carbs or fats. If anything, I feel like 3 years ago when I did a diet like this and I was just restricting myself on carbs and fats, it actually hurt me. And I got to a point where I plateaued and I couldn't lose. And recently I felt like it actually hurt my girl. She's like, look, I'm not losing anymore, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, let me look at your, you know, your diet. I'm like, you need to increase your carbs. Do that. Let me, and tell me how you feel. She's like, I feel a lot better. I'm actually losing weight again. And I feel like sometimes doing simple changes like that could actually help you get out of a plateau. Even if you're in a calorie deficit, I feel like sometimes your body gets used to that. So sometimes maybe increasing your carbs helps raise your leptin levels and you just feel like better and your body starts getting in like a better process of burning quicker and, you know, raises your metabolism.
So when the thing you notice, and you probably noticed yourself, when you're 180 pounds and you started your diet, you're like, when you first start that diet, your motivation it's there. Like you've decided it might be January 1st, but it's there. You might have had a lot of people, they got single, they broke up and they want to like attract a partner. It's their motivation is there. And so you got to think Mr. Beast, for example, his motivation through the roof. This guy is dedicated. Like he is an animal. He can eat the same thing. And like your motivation is amazing right now. But once you lose the weight and your hunger hormones go up, and it's the same thing as I've been explaining to you, eventually you're going to have less energy, not feel as good and all this stuff. And you need some variety. And so that like chicken, asparagus, or like chicken, broccoli, rice, meal after meal after meal, it's not going to work. That's why I mean, not everyone has to get my cookbook. You can do this on your own, but like having variety and choices and foods that you love, it is so important. If you have a diet that is not like, you're not looking forward to it, that diet's not going to work. It'll work briefly, but not in the long term. And the biggest problem I see is people try to get the dream physique. And so, and regarding Mr. Beast, I just wanted to convince him, like, don't go for that dream physique. Go for something halfway there that's realistic, that you can maintain. Because what makes more sense? Losing half the weight and maintaining it forever, or losing all the weight, losing the motivation, gaining it back, up and down, yo-yo diet. That is what most people have done. Most people watching this channel, you've probably been on 10 diets, gained, lost. We want to see people lose the weight and just be there and keep it off. Even if it isn't single digit body fat, doesn't need to be, it just needs to be healthier than you are right now.
My best advice, and you know, some people like really, really hate it, but it's calorie counting. Like if you want to, you know, keep a physique or you want to lose, count your calories. It's the most like, I'm a very analytical person. So I'm a king with numbers. So I'd love to see I'm taking this amount and I burn this amount. That's why I like the watch, because you don't need to get an Apple Watch. You can get like a Fitbit or something a little cheaper, whatever. It doesn't matter. But like it helps me mentally know, like, okay, maybe it's not 100% accurate, but I burned about 3,000 today. About, right? About. It could be 2,800. It could be 3,200. Who fucking knows? But I burned about this. If I'm eating 2,300, I'm definitely in a deficit. I'm definitely going to lose weight. So I think calorie counting is probably the best way to like not drive yourself insane and be like, oh my God, I have to eat, 6 ounces of turkey every fucking meal and this amount of rice and blah, 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 and drive myself insane. When instead you can be counting your calories and you could just be eating whatever you want. Like if you want a Chick-fil-A sandwich, work it in,
I absolutely love that advice. Counting calories, and it doesn't have to be forever. I don't sit there and calculate like I ate 30. I know roughly, but I don't need to anymore. But when I began my weight loss journey, like I started dieting as a teenager, I had no idea how much calories were in anything. And so I'm like a Rain Man, kind of like you. I love numbers. Math was my strongest. So I'm all about the numbers. I learned how many calories was in everything. And I would sit at a plate and I'd be like, okay, this is my pasta, this is rice, and this is potatoes. All the same amount of calories. The potatoes is by far the best choice because I know that's going to be the most filling, as you had mentioned earlier in the video. And you do that with everything. With desserts, I'll be like, okay, cheesecake or regular cake or protein anabolic cake, like in my cookbook. And I'm like, it's a no-brainer. I'm like, I get to eat that. It's 3 times as big as that. I like it almost the same. And so you can judge how many calories does this have? How much taste does it give me in pleasure versus this one? And you pick the better one. It just makes sense. So it's not that I can't eat anything. I can eat anything at any time in my diet. I do a lot of cardio as well. But like once you know and learn the calories in the foods you're eating, you will be shocked that that muffin had 450 calories. And you're like, what? I'd rather eat 2 chocolate bars instead of that muffin. And so do it. And then you learn about this. And then after you know this, maybe it's 6 months of just tracking and learning. All of a sudden, you know and understand. And then from then on, you don't have to track calories. You just eat intuitively, knowing what calories are in things. You become an intelligent, smart, mindful eater. And if you see that your body fat is going up week after week, you're like, you look in the mirror and like, oh, I guess I put on a few pounds. You just slowly lower the calories a little bit. And if you get too lean, you up it. It becomes that simple.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, everyone's different. Everybody's body varies. But like when you're using a TDE calculator, obviously it's giving you an estimate, right? Who knows if that's really, really that accurate? That's why like in my video, I'm like, okay, look, I work out 5 to 7 days a week. It says I'm like really active. I consider myself that, but I'm like, you know what? Let's not go so extreme. Let's do like moderate, because who knows, maybe I'm not burning that some days. And there are days where I don't burn that. My average, I'd say, is like about 2,500 a day. So, I'm always in like a 500 to like 1,000 calorie deficit a day. But yeah, back to what you were saying, like, dude, I'd go out to dinner and and I didn't realize this until like I started like really paying attention to calories and macros. But we wanted to go to Applebee's, like I said last night, and I'm looking at what I would usually eat. I'd sit down and have quesadillas as an appetizer, which was 1,300 calories. I'd have a meal, which was 1,400 calories, and then I'd have dessert, which is 1,500. I'm like, dude, like that's like a 3 to 4,000 calorie meal right there. Like that is absurd. And I'd have bullshit throughout the day on top of that. I'm just like, wow, man. I never realized how much I actually ate. It's absurd. And for me to be eating this low, it's like, it's crazy. But back when I was eating, calories like that, I would get hungry every 2 hours. And I almost feel like I was pre-diabetic because of how much my blood sugar would just drop. I just feel like shit after 2 hours. I'd get angry. I'd be really, just like miserable all the time. And I feel as if dieting over the past couple of months, I've like corrected that problem. And now I could go like 7 hours without eating. Obviously I'm going to be hungry, but I'm not like miserable like I was. So I feel like a lot of people deal with that issue too, is like getting hungry within like 2 hours, just being like completely miserable.
And speaking of that point, I find people, they'd rather not know the calories in the food they're eating. Like they'll eat that meal at that restaurant. They don't want to know the calories. I'm like, but with knowledge comes power, the power to decide, well, should you eat it or not? My personal opinion, every restaurant, every nutrition label, all these things should tell people how many calories are in the foods that they're eating. Like I want to know. And the people are arguing against me. This is their point. They're like, no, that encourages eating disorders. Why? By telling them something. It's like, if I'm going to have sex with somebody, I should know if that person has an STD.
Oh, of course.
Is it ignorance is bliss? You'd rather not know? It's like, what do you mean? So,
Look,
I mean, that's an extreme example, but
I'd rather know. What I choose to do with that information is my choice. If you continue to, you know, go forward with that person, then that's your choice. At least you know, right? If this is telling me, oh, this is 500 calories and this is 1,000, and I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I've had a rough day. I really just want to eat my soul out. Go ahead, eat the 1,000 calories, do you, right? But at least you know. Why would you not want that information?
exactly. I mean, I'm not going to go to a store and look through all the clothing and not look at the price tag and then just buy it. And, oh, I'd rather not know. And then, don't look at my credit card. Then all of a sudden, like, wow, those shoes were $1,000. I like the $100 ones almost as much. I mean, it's just knowledge is power. I think we should know. And with that knowledge, you can do whatever you want with it.
Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, everybody's choice is their own. You know, but everybody has their own goals. So my goal is to get shredded. Maybe your goal is to just, you know, stay where you're at. If you're happy being 20, 30% body fat and that's your lifestyle and that's what you want to live, that's totally okay. But you know what? That's not me. I'd rather not have to walk around debating in my head every day if I'm going to get some type of heart disease or some type of, you know, cancer because I'm not choosing to take care of myself properly.
And I have one last question to wrap up this whole thing. Knowing what you know now, you've dieted, you've gotten under the single digit body fat. Now that you've seen everything, heard anything, if you had to rewind time and have a do-over, what would you do differently on this diet and why? What would be the change that you would make? Like, snap your fingers, you're 180 pounds again. What would you do different?
There's been so many times where both my girl and I, we would get to points where we felt like we were plateauing, and I would research for hours and hours and hours. Like, oh my God, like maybe I should be taking in more fats this time. Maybe we should switch it up, taking more carbs. And it would drive me fucking insane. Like, I just felt so like we'd spend 5 hours on the computer trying to figure it out. And I stressed myself out so bad about it. I just felt like it was so unnecessary. There was points where, you know, I didn't go keto, but like I was doing like 60% fat. And, you know, I was kind of just crapping my brains out all the time with that much fat. I just felt like I was going too in depth. And when I really should have just been focused on my calories and my amount of exercise compared to how much fat and how many carbs I was taking in. And I feel like a lot of people do that. It's not just me. I feel like a lot of people are like so anal, like, oh my God, I can't take in carbs. I can't do that. So that was probably the biggest lesson that I learned.